Sit back in your seats, get something to eat, and watch this movie. Don't let the kiddies see it, because
Good morning, USA. I say that. I've never been to the USA before. Fun fact. I'm coming to you live from London, and you can almost see the sun through the clouds today. It's quite early. It's 8:30 in the morning, and it's a Sunday morning. I didn't go out last night. I'm very proud of myself for that. It's a new thing I'm doing. Not being hungover on Sunday. I hope you enjoy my Reading is Sexy sweater, courtesy of Favorite Child Collective, a very kindly gifted. This was made for me. Reading is very sexy, dare I say. I am trying out a new microphone today because if you watch my videos, you know that the audio on my camera is awful. And I've tried various other audios, but for some reason they're just all awful. I think I've tried like 3 microphones thus far, and they're just not doing what I want them to do. Sorry, we don't get much of this. Just give me a moment here. I need to get my daily vitamin D dosage. February for me was a very busy month. The first 2 months of February, I threw an exhibition party, and that took everything I had and more. So worth it. It was absolutely incredible. And if you came, thank you. I love you. It was pure magic. And if you didn't come, boy, you missed out. So for the first 2 weeks of February, I did not read or watch anything. No films or books. Zero, zilch, nada, none. But the second 2 weeks of February, after Valentine's Day, I really enjoyed my means of escapism. This is so lovely. Sorry, guys, just have to sunbake for a minute through my windows. So for this month, for February, my February reading wrap up, I read 4 books and watched 5 films in February, but 2 of them were short films, like 20-minute long. I'm going to talk about them with you because this month, every single book that I read, all of the 4 books that I read, brilliant. These are the pretty little books that we want to talk about. And 3 of them are tiny because I didn't have much time, and the last one's a little bit bigger, and I read that in one sitting, which I shouldn't, which is so naughty. Don't do that because you don't absorb it as well. But I couldn't put it down. Sorry. We have a little bit of poetry, we have a little bit of fiction, we have a little bit of non-fiction. 2 of these books are arcs and not released yet, but that's fun because you can pre-order them and look forward to them. Why do I have the word gesticulation stuck in my head? Define gesticulation. A gesture, especially a dramatic one, used instead of speaking to emphasize one's words. Oh. Okay, brilliant. I'm going to use that in future now. The first book that I read in February this is Andre Aciman. I'm probably saying that wrong. Oh my goodness. Is it Aciman? It is Italian. What's it got to be? This is The Gentleman from Peru, and this is an arc, and it comes out in April 2024, so not too far. Keep your eyes out for this one because it was so fun. It was weird. It's a little one as well. I picked it up at the Faber Christmas party in London in December. I had this sitting for a while, waiting for the right moment, because I did love Call Me By Your Name. I talk about that book plenty in my earlier videos, I believe. It's a brilliant book. It's the sensorial writing. I have a thing for sensorial prose. If I read a book and it tells me what I can taste, what I can touch, what I can smell, what I can hear, what I can see, all in one, and I can transport myself there, then that for me is default. Incredible prose. Call Me By Your Name, I was completely convinced that I was there in the Italian Riviera. I was there. That was me. This book is set, you guessed it, Italy, the Amalfi Coast in particular. And I have been to the Amalfi Coast, and so it was so easy for me to put myself there with the protagonist once again. But even if you haven't been to the Amalfi Coast, you're about to go to the Amalfi Coast because this book transports you there. It's about a group of friends who get stuck in the Amalfi Coast because their boat breaks down. Oh no, what a shame, we're stuck in the Amalfi Coast. Oh no. And they come across this strange gentleman who's staying at their accommodation, and he's really well dressed, and he's older, and he seems elusive, and he's got this energy about him, and they speak to him, and it turns out he's some kind of how do you say, psychic medium. He's connected to spiritual energy, and he can tell them all about their past and their future, and they'll get kind of hooked. And there's this really interesting story that overlaps for one of the characters that's quite life-changing, and it's up to you whether you believe it or not, and it's up to the protagonist whether she believes it or not. Really interesting. I haven't read anything like that, actually, and for such a short book, it's really quite packed in and punchy. I do recommend this. At the start, I didn't think I'd like it, but by the end of it, I thought to myself, this book freaked me out for a little bit because I couldn't help but spiral. I love saying that. I could not help but spiral. It was in my blood. It's in my nature to spiral. Sue me. I like a little spiral. Get a little bit philosophical when I shouldn't sometimes. But this book was definitely intentionally philosophical in the way that it talks a lot about soul ties and soulmates. And the whole premise is, I know you in this life and I love you. And I've known you in the last life and I loved you. And I'll know you in the next life and I loved you. And it's quite beautiful, and it makes me look around at my friends and my family and my lovers and think, have I known you in another life? I mean, if you believe in other lives, I don't know what I believe in. Catholic guilt tells me you can't believe in anything that's not heaven or hell, but natural human curiosity tells me, but there's so many more things that we could explore. Have we considered this? Have we considered this? Anyway, this book made me spiral. I don't know if I believe in soulmates, but I do believe in soul ties. And I do believe that there are people in my life who I feel like I have lived other lifetimes with them. Whether that's metaphorically or literally, I'm yet to work out. The second book that I read was Assembly by Natasha Brown. My fingers are covering her name. Assembly by Natasha Brown. And I have read this before, I think a few years ago, but I read it really briefly. And it was in my era when I was trying to read a bunch of books really quick and to get content. Awful. 2022 maybe? 2022 was an awful era for that. Half the books I read in 2022 I couldn't tell you about. I read so many books in 2022 because I just moved to London for my career as book writer and reviewer. And so I thought, oh, now I have to read a bunch of books. Also because I was cast into this community of people who read in the same career that read a lot more than me. So I started to read a lot more, but I'm not the kind of person that can absorb a book in a day and then go on to the next one a day after. I need to sit with it and mull it over so I can really appreciate it. So this was one of the books that got lost in translation in my read a bunch of books era. If there's anything I can tell you right now, it's read with intention and consume consciously, because it's so much better to read 3 books in a month that you'll genuinely understand than to read 12 books in a month and you couldn't tell me about half of them. This book here is an interesting tale on British society, the working class British society. It's quite honest and quite upfront and quite confronting also, but in a way that's done really beautifully, and in a way that some lines I literally gasped because it was so wonderful. There are points that read like pure poetry. The prose is so digestible and beautiful. It doesn't read like fiction. It really covers colonialism in a way that's so refreshing, and it feels very contemporary and it feels very raw. There's this one review that words it much better than I think I could, and it says, a piercing cautionary tale about the cost of assimilating into a society still in denial about its colonial past. Because it's such a brief, short little quip of a book, if I explained it anymore, I'd be giving spoilers. The next book that I read is called Pixel Flesh. It's called Pixel Flesh by Alan Atlanta. And it looks like this. And it's quite big, and I read it all in one setting because, oh my god. Okay. All right. How do I sum this? How do I condense this? This is also an arc, and it comes out in May 2024. So not too long. Both of these arcs, not too long. Pre-order them because I love them both, and I think they're both quite essential reading if you'd like to spiral. If you're normal like me and like literature that makes you sick in the head. I find that a lot of feminist literature that I read is, even if it's 5 years old, it just feels so outdated because we're just rapidly evolving as a society, specifically in the way that beauty culture is absolutely insane. I mean, 5 years ago, BBLs weren't everywhere. They were more of like a kind of celebrities have them thing, but now everyone's got BBLs, and now everyone's got Botox, and everyone's got filler. I don't. You can tell probably. You're probably going to look at my face now and say, yeah, you probably need it. I think that this book stirred parts of me that I didn't want to be stirred. And I was texting my friend as I was reading it yesterday, and I thought, I don't know if this is good for me to be reading right now. I was sending her excerpts and underlines, and she said, I don't know if this is good for me to be reading right now. It's almost like denial is easier than ignorance is easier, oblivion is easier than to look at the issue front on. To exist as a young woman today is to struggle in a sea of paradoxes. Beauty is both a blessing and a curse. Oh my god, I got a comment on one of my TikToks literally an hour ago. Literally an hour ago, and it said, I posted a photo of myself from a few years ago and a photo of myself today, and someone commented, you're aging like fine wine. I'm aging? Is 3 years that big of a gap? What do you mean? I can't believe that youth today are so conscious that aging is a thing. Maybe if it had been 10 years or 20 years and someone said you're aging like fine wine, I'd be like, oh, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. But 3 years? 3 years is not aging. Girl, it's so much to think about and so much to talk about, and it's so sad how rife it is in our culture. It's so sad, and I'm sure it's always been there, but it's just so interesting now how it's so accessible to change everything about yourself if you want to. It's insane because most people that I know in their 20s, all of my friends in our 20s, have had work done, whether it's proper cosmetic surgery or just Botox. It's not just Botox, is it? Do you know what I learned Botox is? Botox is, it's like a toxin that kills your muscles or something and stops them from moving. Why do people do that? Why are we injecting toxins into our skin to stop our skin from moving? What do you mean? I also found out via this book that there's no such thing as preventative Botox. There's no such thing as baby Botox. It's all just made up scams to get you to get Botox earlier. It makes me so scared to grow up. I mean, I am grown up, but it makes me so scared to grow up even further. Because the pressures, the horrors of being a woman and being expected to stay young and beautiful forever. Will you still love me when I'm no younger? Young and beautiful. Anyway, this book made me angry. It made me sad. It made me realize things that I wasn't ready to realize. It also stated the obvious, which I already knew, but I had to hear in a blunt way, especially because the age of social media, and I'm on social media so much. It's my job. And you realize how fake it is and how curated it is and how everyone's just got a persona, and how, you know, you look at someone's carousel post and you swipe through and think, oh, what a wonderful life. And most of those pictures, probably 1 out of 100 that they picked, and it's all posed. And I'm vowing to myself, because of this book, to not do that ever again. If I ever lament over pictures, slap my wrist. I'm just going to post the first one I take, because I am me and I look like me regardless. If I ever look in the mirror and think, oh God, what's that? Oh, kill me, don't kill me. I love living. The next book that I read, the fourth and final book that I read in February is Goblin Market and Other Poems from Christina Rossetti. It's an absolutely beautiful little poetry collection. I bought this mid last year at some point. I started reading it, but I never finished it, and so I decided, well, now's the time to finish it. And I love it so much. I was drawn to it because I went to the exhibition of the Rossettis. They're siblings, and they're all insanely talented artists and writers. And there was one poem on the wall called Goblin Market. And I believe I've read this in a past video, perhaps, when I first got the book. It's really fun. The beats are it's just so tight, and it's so fun, and it reads like a riddle. Morning and evening, maids heard the goblin cry, come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, apples and quinces, lemons and oranges, plump, unpecked cherries, melons and raspberries, bloom down-cheeked peaches, swart-headed mulberries, wild freeborn cranberries, crabapples, dewberries, pineapples, blackberries, apricots, strawberries, all ripe together in summer weather, morns that pass by, fair eves that fly, come buy. That's not even the first opening paragraph. This poem is really long, but I love it so much because it's just so fun to say, and it makes me feel like I'm in a little fairy tale world. But the rest of these poems are also really wonderful. There's some that are absolutely beautiful. A lot of them are devout for God. My Catholic gilt cross is burning as I say that. First published 1862, so this was mid to late 1800s, and it's really fun in the way that it's very much a reflection of that time and that culture, but still applicable to our time and culture. And it talks a lot about spring. Christina Rossetti really favored spring. I think there's like 3 or 4 poems in this about spring, and it's almost spring in London. Sun. And so that was nice to read as I was laying in bed and the late winter sun was hitting me on the face. consensually. Do you want to talk about films now? I recommend all of those, by the way. Every single one of them I recommend. Before we continue on to films, I want to have a quick word about today's wonderful sponsor, Squarespace. If you are a writer or artist of any medium, which I bet you are because you're a part of my community, I am launching a literary and arts journal / not-so-secret cult via Squarespace, where I provide a monthly prompt and you can create something based on that prompt and submit it, and I curate a lovely little world of art for you and others to consume. I crafted / am still crafting this platform myself, and it is quite involved, but luckily for me I'm partnering with Squarespace to bring it to you. Squarespace just makes the whole process of building a website so seamless and, dare I say, enjoyable. And I love Squarespace for turning passion projects into professional projects and morphing dreams and concepts into tangible realities. And this is just done so simply by the Fluid Engine design system and elements that I can eventually play with, like email campaigns and an online store. You can check out the collective at nowheregirlcollective.com and make yourself familiar until submissions open. And in the meantime, you can head to squarespace.com/Dakota Warren for 10% off your first purchase if you want to build your own website or passion project too. The first film that I watched in February was Innocence. This is Innocence, and it's from 2004. And I'm pretty sure the director is the partner of Gaspar Noé. And Gaspar Noé did Climax and Love in those films, which guilty pleasure. I love. Sue me. I've said that once on my TikTok, and a bunch of film bros were like, "Oh my god, you like Gaspar Noé? I have fun watching them. Sue me." My review is visually breathtaking, an allegory on girlhood, and the titular Innocence, so open to interpretation. I'm still thinking about it. Felt like a dream. It really did feel like a dream. It's basically a sequence of beautiful visuals. So many beautiful stills could be taken from this. And because I am a sucker for stills, if it's got pretty visuals and stills, then I think it's a good film. It's about these girls, these young French girls who go to some preparatory school, preparing for something, we don't know what, in this beautiful forest kind of setting, and it's almost like a fairy tale. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's got this weird kind of thriller energy. The suspense really builds because we know something bad's about to happen, but we don't know what. The next film was Paparazzi, 1964. And this was a kind of short documentary on paparazzi in the 60s for Brigitte Bardot, the French actor and singer, because she was absolutely swarmed. They were trying to film a Godard film on some island, and the paparazzi would just, they'd get boats over and hide in the bushes and try and cause stories. There was one where she was walking down a staircase and she was looking at the stairs as she walked down the staircase. Somebody snapped a photo of her looking down as she was walking, all over the tabloids, saying she's hiding something, she's guilty, she can't even look as forward as she's walking, she just didn't want to slip over. Paparazzi really are the banes of existence. So many horror stories about paparazzi. Why do they still exist? Why, human nature, are we so curious about other people's lives that we feel the need to pry non-consensually? Why is that still a business? I don't get it. Who consumes that kind of media? Anyway, the next film that I watched was Blue Jeans from 1958, another French film. This was a weird one. I mean, it's kind of just the motif of the film is boys will be boys. A little outdated now, don't we think? Two boys, they're in Cannes, and they go around on their mopeds trying to pick up some young girls. They're also young boys, by the way, they're like 17. It's just a story of them trying to get laid. I don't recommend it, no. In case you're asking, I don't recommend it. The next film that I watched was Sibyl from 2019. I loved this. This is from Justine Triet, the same director of Anatomy of a Fall, and I love that film so much. It's my film of 2023. Absolutely brilliant. This French psychiatrist, psychologist, she wants to be an author, but she can't find inspiration, and she gets this patient who's got this crazy life. She's an actress, and she's pregnant for some affair that she's had, and so the psychologist, she's like, well, this is perfect inspiration for my novel, and so she really delicately entwines herself with their lives, and it's just so interesting and insane. I liked it a lot. The final film that I watched was Passages, 2023. I've been meaning to watch this for a while. Everything I've watched here is on Mubi, by the way. I'm a Mubi girl through and through. Mubi, you have my heart. This film was insane. It's reminded me a lot of The Worst Person in the World. I don't know if you've seen The Worst Person in the World. It's a Norwegian film, and it's one of my favorite films, and it's brilliant because I love films about messy young adults trying to work out what the hell they're doing in life. Instead of the stifled Norwegian disposition that the worst person in the world had, it had the messy, erotic French disposition. And it's very much so. There's this married gay couple, and then a woman comes in the scene, and one of the men falls for the woman and causes rifts. But he's also just an awful person, and he wants to keep his husband, and he wants to keep the woman, and he wants to keep everyone. And she gets pregnant, and it's all awful. Everything's awful, and he's an awful person. And we're just watching, like, you're an awful person, but we can't stop watching because it's messy. And I love watching messy things. There's also some pretty intense sex scenes in there. I mean, most of the things I watch for some reason have really intense sex scenes, I think because they're French. Me editing from my kitchen, hello, but I forgot a film, and that was Wicked Little Letters. I think it's 2023, I don't know, I watched it the other day, so maybe 2024. I went to a press junket of it. It comes out in cinemas, I think, maybe today or tomorrow, I don't know. But it was really funny. It's quite quintessential British humour. It's very on-the-nose, dry, silly British humour. So I don't know how it's going to land in the US of A, but intrigued to see how it does. But Olivia Colman, I love you. I would die for you. I saw Olivia Colman at the red carpet of the Wonka premiere. Had a few too many champagnes, screamed out, Olivia Colman, I'd die for you. Not my proudest moment, but I speak the truth nonetheless. The film's about a bunch of letters surface in this little town saying horrible cuss words and everything, and they investigate and try and work out who's been sending the letters. There you have it. That is our nine media pieces consumed of the month. This was a good month of consumption. It was all very intentional as well because I was quite strapped for time. Again, I'm trying to do wrap-ups every single month, even if I don't read or watch that much, because I want to keep you updated, because I don't have a Goodreads or anything, and you're all on my back for it. Sorry, sue me. I don't like to log the things that I read like that. It makes it feel like a sport. I don't want it to feel like a sport. This isn't a game to me. I did one for January. If you haven't seen that, go watch that, because January I read a lot more. Tell me what you read and watched in the comments, and if I like it, I will go pick up a copy or a film version. I might see you in a video between now and then. You never know with me. Consistency is not key with me. Thank you for sticking around. Love you.